All right, let's jump right in. When you hear the word Bigfoot, I bet you picture that same old thing, right? A big, blurry shape, some grainy photo from the woods. It's become a bit of a pop culture joke. But what if we look past all that? Because today we're diving into some really compelling evidence that points to something much, much stranger. A real paradox.
For the longest time, the whole search has been treated like a biology project. The question was simple. Is there an undiscovered great ape out there hiding in the forests? People have spent years, fortunes, looking for a flesh and blood animal, a missing piece of the primate family tree.
But here's the twist. What if that's not even the right question to be asking? I mean, what if the evidence shows us something that's physical one minute, and then just isn't the next? Something more like an intelligence, not just an animal. That is the Sasquatch Paradox, and that's exactly what we're getting into today.
Okay, so before we go flying off into the weird stuff, and trust me, it gets weird, we have to start with our feet on the ground. We have to look at the actual physical evidence. Because believe it or not, there's a really strong case that something tangible, something biological is out there leaving very real tracks.
And when I say tracks, I'm not just talking about some big footprints in the mud. The detail here is just wow. We're talking about casts of prints that show things a simple hoaxer just wouldn't think of. Like a mid-tarsal break, that's a flex point in the foot that we don't have, but apes do. Some of these casts even have dermal ridges. That's like fingerprints on the soles of the feet. And the depth of these prints? It suggests something incredibly heavy, way heavier than a person in a costume.
And that right there gets to one of the first key takeaways. The sheer consistency is what's so mind-blowing. We see these same anatomically correct features in prints found decades apart, hundreds of miles from each other. That points to a genuine biological creature, not just a bunch of random people with fake wooden feet.
So the tracks are one thing, but the physical evidence isn't just what's found underfoot. You also have to listen, because what people have heard, well, it sounds like more than just an animal.
Yeah, I'm talking about the famous Sierra sounds. These recordings from the 70s are chilling. They're not just random growls, they're complex, layered vocalizations. And get this, a US Navy cryptolinguist, a guy whose job is to break codes and analyze language, he studied them. His conclusion? They have syntax, structure. It sounds less like animal calls and more like an actual intelligent language, like a conversation.
So, okay, let's recap. We've got incredibly detailed footprints and vocalizations that sound like a language. Sounds like a pretty solid case for a new kind of primate, right? Well, hold on. Because this is the exact point where the neat and tidy biological case just completely falls apart. This is where things get weird. Really weird. So, picture this. You're following a perfect set of tracks. They're deep in the mud, super clear, you follow them, and then they just stop. Right in the middle of an open field. No trees to climb, nowhere to go, they just vanish. And this isn't a one-off story, it's a pattern reported by some of the most credible witnesses out there.
And the vanishing tracks are just the beginning. It's like there's this whole cocktail of high strangeness that comes with these encounters. People report seeing these weird glowing orbs of light at the same time. They talk about a sudden creepy silence falling over the forest. All the birds and insects just go quiet. And then there's the tech failures. Cameras stop working, phones die, car engines stall for no reason.
This quote here from a witness just sums it up perfectly. A physical event, a deep grunt in the woods, happens at the exact same time as a totally paranormal event, a flash of reddish light. You see, it's not like one thing happened and then the other. They're connected. It's like we're not looking at two separate phenomena, a creature and a light. We're looking at one single, very strange event.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, orbs of light, vanishing tracks. This just sounds like modern UFO stories mixed in with Bigfoot. And that's a fair thought. But here's the thing. When you actually dig into the history, you find out this mix of physical creature and paranormal weirdness, it's not new at all. It's been part of the story for a very, very long time.
I mean, just look at this pattern over time. You can go back to journals from the late 1800s and read about ranchers describing a flaming moon landing and these hairy, crazy bears coming out of it. Sounds familiar, right? Then you jump to the 1970s and you get those impossible language recordings, the Sierra sounds. And now, today, people with iPhones are reporting the exact same stuff, the tracks, the orbs, the vanishing act. The technology in our hands changes, but the story, the actual pattern of events, stays the same.
So this all leads to a major split in how we even think about this. On one side, you've got modern cryptozoology.
They're looking for an ape. They want DNA, hair samples, a body. They see it as a biology problem to be solved. But then you have this other worldview from many indigenous cultures that has been saying for centuries, you're looking for the wrong thing. They don't describe an animal. They describe a type of people with their own rules, their own culture, and a connection to the stars. And from that perspective, there is no paradox. The idea that a being can be both physical and have this, let's call it a paranormal or cosmic side, that's not a contradiction to them. It's just what these beings are. All that high strangeness we talk about, for them it's not strange. It's just part of the whole picture.
This is where we have to zoom out. What if this Sasquatch thing isn't happening in a vacuum? What if this bizarre mix of the physical and the other is actually part of a much bigger pattern that shows up in other paranormal mysteries?
And when you actually lay it all out, the pattern is kind of impossible to ignore. Look at this, the specific list of weirdness tied to Sasquatch. The orbs, the sightings, the electronic glitches. It's almost a perfect match for what's reported at places like Skinwalker Ranch, probably the most famous paranormal hotspot on the planet. This isn't a coincidence. It strongly suggests that whatever is happening, it might all be coming from the same source, the same underlying something. So here's the absolute core of it, the key takeaway. We're not trying to solve one mystery here, we're trying to solve two, and they're somehow wrapped up in the same package.
And this is why just calling it an undiscovered ape misses the point entirely. If you only look at the physical stuff, the tracks and hair, you're basically throwing out most of the evidence. To get the full story, you have to include the language-like sounds, you have to include the high strangeness, the orbs, the indigenous stories, all of it. Otherwise, you're not seeing the whole puzzle.
All right, so let's put it all together. Where does this leave us? Well, it leaves us with some pretty mind-bending takeaways. Key takeaways that aren't just about Bigfoot anymore. They're about, well, everything. About maybe rewriting the rules for how we think reality itself works.
So here they are, 5 big realizations. 1, this is way bigger than just a biology question. 2, the people reporting the weirdest stuff are often the most credible. Cops, doctors, military folks. People who don't want this kind of attention. 3, it's the pattern that matters. The consistent link between the physical and the paranormal is the real story here. 4, indigenous wisdom isn't just folklore. It's a data bank that has described this very paradox for generations. And number 5, the biggest one of all, this phenomenon doesn't just change our field guides. It might just change our understanding of reality itself.
So when you take all of that in, you realize the old question we started with, is Bigfoot real? It just doesn't work anymore. It's too small, it misses the whole point of what the evidence is telling us.
The real question, the much more profound and honestly more important question is this one. What kind of reality does this thing operate in? What kind of universe allows a being to be solid and physical one moment and something else the next?
And that leads to the final thought I want to leave you with. If a creature can seemingly step in and out of our physical world, if it plays by a set of rules we don't understand, it makes you wonder, right? What else is out there? What else operates by those same rules, waiting just outside the edges of what we can see?